Welcome. Lately, I've been on a roll talking about pans, so let's continue that trend, shall we? Today I want to talk about seasoning cast iron pans and how to take care of them. This is one of my favorite ways to cook. And if you want to find out how to avoid calling the fire brigade every single time you season one of these things, stay tuned. Alright, so basically, the prevailing wisdom is as follows. If you want to season a cast iron pan, you clean it up, cover it in oil, put it upside down, 500 degrees in the oven for like an hour, and rinse and repeat. This smokes up your house. It smokes up your house something fierce. And not just for a few minutes, we're talking for hours at a time. And oil smoke is one of the worst things because it sticks to all your surfaces. It makes your fire alarms go off. It's just an all-around bad situation. So today I'm going to offer an alternative method that I've kind of figured out through trial and error, and also how to save time, because the prevailing method takes hours and hours to do, which usually results in people getting frustrated and probably tossing their pans at the end of the day. So let's begin. First things first, I've got two pans here in two distinctly different conditions. This one, you can see a little bit of rust is actually starting to pop out through the seasoning, so this is an excellent candidate to re-season. This pan isn't nearly so bad, but we're going to re-season it anyways. Now, before we start all the festivities, we may as well get ahead and start the grill, because this takes some time. Obviously, I understand that not everyone may have a grill, but I do recommend you get one. Even a small one like this is going to do the trick, and you can use it to cook delicious food. For this, we want an extra hot fire, so be sure to load your grill up with plenty of charcoal. Now, I've got a fancy one because I'm lazy. There's a little propane heater just underneath all this charcoal, so it's almost like cheating, isn't it? Now, depending on what condition your pan is in, you may need to scrub a lot or maybe a little. Some pans have buildup, and in the cases of having a ton of buildup, actually one of the best things you may consider doing is actually taking a drill with a wire brush to it and then cleaning it carefully after with some dish detergent. So all I'm going to do, dish detergent, Brillo pad, scratch pad, and I'm just going to try to get as much of this old oil off of the surface as possible. Depending if it needs it or not, maybe consider doing the same to the bottom. I'm going to skip that part today. Once the surface is prepped, we're just going to dry it off with a paper towel and then let our stove do the rest of the job to make sure that there's no more moisture left on these pans. With the pans dry, we are about ready to move into the next portion, which is the actual seasoning portion. And for that, we will need oil. Now, oil, the type of oil, is actually very important. You're going to want to choose an oil that has as high a smoke point as possible. I like to use safflower oil because it's a very high heat oil and very resistant to, well, heat. Avocado oil, same thing, also very resistant to high heat. And then there's a bevy of oils that are probably below that in terms of their resistivity to heat. Some oils to probably avoid are going to be olive oil. Animal fats like grease and lard are also very viable alternatives to oils. Because here's what's going to happen with the oil. We're going to take this oil, we're going to cover the pan in it. What the heat is going to do, when we reach a sufficient temperature on the surface of the pan, we start a chemical process known as polymerization, which to the best of my knowledge is a chemical reaction that causes molecules to bond themselves like a chain. Now, polymerization is also interesting because, as best as I can tell, it's an exponential function to heat, meaning that the more heat you apply, the faster the rate of polymerization. But there is a limit. There's a limit at which, if we heat it too much, the oil will actually break down and the polymerization will fail. You do have to be in a kind of Goldilocks zone of heat in order for this process to occur properly. Now, ordinarily, you would put this in the oven at like 400 degrees, and that is a kind of a safe temperature. It allows the polymerization process to take place, but at a very slow rate, which is one of the things I'm trying to avoid because I don't have that much time in the day. I have several pans. I don't want to spend several hours doing this. This whole process takes all of maybe 20 minutes doing it with a grill outside. And it avoids the smoke, of course. All right, now we're out here and we're basically ready to go. You want that hot, hot heat. If you're using charcoal, you know the charcoal's already because they've got this white ash over them. Before putting your pans on the surface, you're definitely gonna want to clean it because all this stuff is just going to get stuck to the pan otherwise. Now for the actual seasoning part of this, all I'm going to do is I'm gonna take this paper towel and I'm going to fold it up like this several times, and this will basically become my patting device. And I'm gonna use these tongs to put oil on it and then cover the pans in it. Safflower oil, you don't need much. And then we're just gonna use the tongs and cover the entirety of the surface of the pan. It's important too that we also cover the back side of the pan. And now they're basically ready to go in. Now, as I promised, because ain't nobody got time to wait hours to get this done, we will get this done in a matter of minutes. So I'm gonna set my timer here, and as best as I can tell from experience, 3 minutes seems to be the magic number for at like around 500, maybe 550 degrees. Now, the pans go in. Make sure if you're using these silicone sleeves, don't accidentally put it in here with the pans. We'll wait for this to reach about 500 degrees, at which point we'll start our 3-minute timer. And with the temperature sitting nicely at right around 500 degrees, maybe more, start our timer. 3 minutes on the clock. We don't want it to be much longer than that because in my experience, if you leave it in here too long, the polymerization process will actually break down. It will fail and you'll be wondering why things keep sticking to your pans. In fact, in this case, we're almost at 600 degrees. Quite hot. And just as the timer goes off, now it's time to pull them out. Take great care as to try to not burn yourself. Some heat protectant gloves might actually be in order here. Let the pans cool down for about a minute or two and then rinse and repeat. The more oil coatings you perform, the longer it'll last and the more of a non-stick property it'll have. I'm gonna stop at 4. Back into the grill they go for another 3 minutes. Now from here, I will simply use my judgment. Because I can see that the temperature is well north of 600 degrees, I'm actually going to reduce that time to just 2 minutes. Because I don't want that oil to inadvertently break down. This is obviously going to be a bit of a challenge with charcoal. It's very hard to control and maintain like a consistent heat. So where's the sweet spot exactly? Well, I would say right around slightly north of 500 degrees, about 3 minutes. If you're north of 600 degrees, keep it at around 2 or just under 2 minutes. What are these numbers based on? Literally just experience. There's no charts. I couldn't find any scientific papers on this. I wonder what the scientists are busy studying these days. But I mean, this is old knowledge. That's how the old world used to do it. I'm pretty sure they just chucked their cast iron wares right into an open fire. And it worked. But I mean, this right here is the point, right? Right now, if we were doing this inside our house, all of this smoke would be also inside the house. Which is an all-around, not very good situation, I might imagine. Once you've got them seasoned to your liking, about 3 to 5 times, just let them cool completely before using them. And now, let's see how we did. Let's see if this is in fact a non-stick coating by cooking an egg on it. Butter and egg. And we are gonna get it right this time, I promise. And if we did our job right, it should have no business whatsoever sticking to the surface. Perfect, look at that. And I just like to flip it, just briefly, quickly off the heat, and suddenly we got ourselves a cooking show. Beautiful. And now for the carrying aspect of the cast iron pan. The best time to clean cast iron pan is shortly after cooking, so let it cool down just a touch. Let some hot water run. Make sure you don't shock the pan by equalizing the temperature of the water to the pan. We're going to treat this much the same exact way that we treat a non-stick pan. So we pretend that the surface is made out of glass, which it basically is. I like to just gently scrape off any food off of the pan. And once we're done with that, just wipe it off with a paper towel. Nothing crazy needed. I never use any soap. And that's all there is to it. We have seasoned the pan without smoking up our house. We did it in just under an hour. And we did multiple pans. And we have a spectacular result. And look, I know, I am most certainly not the first person on the planet to have figured out that you can use fire outside to season the pan. But in all my travels, the oven method is what I see to be the prevailing method, and I just happen to think that it's one of the crappiest methods because of all the consequences that occur as a result. But either way, let me know in the comments what you think of this result and what you think of this technique. How do you season your cast iron pans? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.